What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, there was a lot of talk around a certain Nintendo Switch release, and a lot of people were joking about it and making fun of it, but a lot of people also realized something about the eShop all of a sudden. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about Gabe Newell teasing Valve games apparently coming to consoles later on this year. And we're also going to be talking about Ubisoft as they had a recent investors call going over the future of their AAA game development, how they could actually be looking more towards free-to-play experiences. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with EA. We were expecting them to announce their big event, their EA Play, and we were thinking they were going to put it around E3, but it looks like they're going to be going later on into the summer. And we can see this tweet here saying EA Play Live is coming back July 22nd. Save the date. And this is something typically that would happen like the Saturday before the week of E3. And EA kind of treated it like it wasn't even part of E3. So I guess it's not too surprising that they are pushing it off further into the summer. Maybe it'll give them some extra time to get some of the presentations done. We should see Battlefield, though, still be unveiled next month. And it could even still be part of one of the events at E3, like, for example, with Microsoft. Now, as for this event, we expect, of course, to see any of their sports titles like FIFA and probably a deep dive into the Battlefield game that they're going to be announcing in June, maybe some gameplay. And then there's also rumors, which is pretty cool, about maybe some new Star Wars game like a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order from Respawn. And then on top of that, I would obviously like to see something in the Titanfall series. The sequel would be great there, but either way, it should be pretty interesting to look forward to. And I'm assuming it's going to be a bit better than the previous EA Play, especially with things like this big new Battlefield to show off. Also, Fatal Frame fans may want to look away for this segment because we did get, I guess, a new Fatal Frame game announced. They even put out a full trailer. Like, I don't know why they cut this trailer together. It was just going to annoy people because you can see we're kind of going through. They're doing these interesting shots. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Is a new Fatal Frame game about to be announced? Oh, wait, nope. It's a slot machine. That's right. We do have a slot machine, apparently, in the Fatal Frame series to look forward to. And the last Fatal Frame game we had, I guess, was in 2014 on the Wii, and for some reason they said, hey, let's let them know about this slot machine. And look, the pachinko machines and gambling, all that, it's done well for Konami, so I guess in this case for, what would it be, Koei Tecmo or something, with doing this whole thing with Fatal Frame and a pachinko machine makes sense financially because it has proven to be very lucrative. It's just frustrating for fans after that trailer went up, got downvoted like crazy, and now we're kind of sitting here like, oh, is that the future now for Fatal Frame? Because that would be a real shame now that we're seeing some pretty cool controller innovations with things like the Joy-Con controllers or even the DualSense on the PlayStation 5 for it to just kind of be relegated to being a gambling device. We'll see, but I guess for now there's a Fatal Frame slot machine to look forward to. Oh, and we did get updated sales numbers for Resident Evil Village from Capcom recently. They have been talking a lot about initial sales for some of their releases, which usually means they've done pretty well, and it does look like Resident Evil Village is off and running now. We can head over to Capcom's website, where they say Resident Evil Village ships over 3 million units globally. Stunning visuals and terrifying gameplay combined for a deeply immersive experience, captivating fans worldwide and delivering a strong start to sales. So this is good news, obviously, for the Resident Evil series, as it continues to roll along here with sales. And I've been playing through Village. I'm right at the end now. I should have it finished up today, and I've enjoyed my time with it. I know the first-person Resident Evils are kind of controversial because people seem to like the third-person style, and I do lean more towards that with what we've seen with Resident Evil 2, for example, and even Resident Evil 3, but looking forward to Resident Evil 4 getting put into that RE engine that's exciting stuff. But Resident Evil Village has been pretty good. I've actually enjoyed my time with it, and I do like it more than 7. I really enjoy, obviously, the visuals, which are ridiculous in Resident Evil Village, but even kind of the art style for the different environments, the gunplay, and actually after changing some of the options around the controls for sensitivity, it's worked out pretty well. So good stuff here. Certainly a solid start for Resident Evil Village in terms of sales. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this big new release, apparently, for the Switch. One that actually got talked about a lot for what it was, and you can see that here. It is a calculator. That's right. This is a calculator that is, interestingly enough, using the Call of Duty font for its title at the top there. It's out today. It's $9.99, so there's that, I guess. And you can see the screenshots show that it is indeed able to do basic math. So we have multiplication, some division there. Great. Awesome stuff there for calculator. They do have a description of scientific calculator with a clear, easy to read, multi-line display, which should help with those not so easy to do math problems. Calculator has an appealing, modern, and practical design, sure to be popular with all students and engineers. They don't mention here, but if it's in portable mode, hey, you can even turn the calculator upside down for any of you old school calculator fans and users there. It's going to be 53 megabytes. It's out today, and that has one player. This is published by Sebek, I think is how you pronounce it, and they've published quite a few games on the Switch, such as Night Vision and Guitar, and a game called just Fight. Okay. Survival, one called just Paint, Battleground, Bubble, Darts, Drums. I mean, you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. The eShop has been known now to just accumulate mountains of shovelware. It's just, like if you go to the recent tabs and start scrolling, you will just see some of the most generic sounding games, and they're all like $10, $5. Some of them, obviously, for a while there, they were doing those big time discounts to get down to a penny so that they could then jump to the top of sales charts, and that was more for advertising. Nintendo even noticed this and apparently made it so that you can only drop it down to $1.99, but I still occasionally see some that are below $1, like 89 cents. Either way, though, the whole calculator thing became like a meme online yesterday as people were making fun of it because obviously it's a calculator on the Switch being sold for $10. But that's been like the reality on the eShop for a while now. I just read a bunch of games that Sebek, who isn't alone when it comes to these publishers who put out these very minimalistic games for like $10. There are quite a few of them. Now, it was brought up, Jeff Grubb on Twitter mentioned when I tweeted this out, hey, is it really a problem if no one's noticed? And I mean, I don't know. If people have not noticed this, that's kind of impressive to me because you can't miss it when you go on the eShop, but maybe people just don't care that much because they go to the eShop knowing what game they want, they get it, and then they kind of leave the eShop. But on Nintendo's side, they would want people to spend more time in the eShop and able to discover games better because that means that people would be more inclined to spend money if they found more interesting titles. Instead, I've noticed things just get buried all the way down half the time. If 30 games come out in a day, and that is not unheard of on the eShop, yeah, it's gonna get lost in the shuffle. So I don't know what Nintendo does here. Maybe the eShop redesign is a next-gen feature, but we've been saying that about things like folders and themes and basically anything for quality of life with the Switch now. But yeah, after seeing Calculator get beaten down so much, I mean, it's not too surprising to me to see this, but I guess, yeah, a lot of people don't really spend as much time kind of wading through all of the junk on the eShop, and they just kind of pick out what they want and move along. But let me know if you've noticed that on the eShop, because calculator for $10, that's just another Tuesday. Next up, let's talk about an interesting tease from Gabe Newell when it comes to Valve games on consoles. And this appeared to have been asked at a public school, I guess, during a Q&A when asked about, I guess, the future of Valve games and if we could see some of those head to consoles, specifically, I guess, like the Xbox Series X, the PS5, or the Switch. And he had a surprising, I guess, response to this. It was more than I figured he would give it like a setting like this. Figured he would just be very vague and say, nah, nothing to announce right now. But he kind of just said, yeah, we do have some plans for this. You can see some of the footage here. And, you know, I'll even actually play the response for you guys as well.
Will this game be porting any games to consoles, or will it just stay on PC?
You will get a better idea of that by the end of this year.
So we can see Gabe Newell says you'll get a better idea of that by the end of this year. And if you remember, we had that document from Epic Games that kind of becomes a lot more relevant now, where they had been, I guess, spying on Phil Spencer, that he was meeting with Gabe Newell several times. And the initial thought there was, oh, maybe Phil is talking to Gabe about getting Game Pass onto Steam, which I still think is a possibility. But what if it was discussing the idea of Valve games going into Game Pass like all at once, kind of like what they did with EA? Maybe there is some money being exchanged there overall, and we start getting some of these games just kind of thrown into Game Pass. That would be pretty cool. And also keep in mind, there is a possibility, and I think it's a very good possibility, that Half-Life Alyx finds its way to the PlayStation VR 2. It would make a ton of sense because Half-Life Alyx It's a great game. I mean, anyone who has a VR headset that works well enough to get that, and those are kind of expensive, right? Like, you're not going to be playing it with some of the, I guess, the lower end VR headsets. Like, you'd want to get, obviously, like a Valve Index, for example, that can set you back like $1,000. But that is a game that could certainly use the overall publicity and user base of that PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2. If it's anything like the regular or the original PlayStation VR, it should accumulate a solid user base overall in terms of the VR space, where it's like 5 or 6 million. That's a lot for VR headsets. So that is a possibility, as well as, and I thought about this, just kind of a long shot because Microsoft says they're not interested in VR. What if the Valve Index became compatible with the Xbox Series X, maybe the Series S, but certainly the Series X, and all of a sudden any of these VR games that Valve decides to create for the Valve Index is something that can go on the Xbox day one alongside of PC. A lot of possibilities here and things to think about when it comes to Valve games on the PC or on the Xbox or the PlayStation or even the Switch. Half-Life 2 on the Switch, that'd be kind of cool. Let me know what your best guesses are here as to what Gabe Newell is talking about. Next up, let's talk about a fun announcement that we had yesterday, a game from the Super Nintendo era coming up now for current platforms as well as PC. And we also found out that it will be getting a physical release later on this summer. So for all of you out there who's like, they announce it digitally and then like a month later they announce it physically, so I have to end up double dipping. Not the case here. You can actually hold off a bit if you want. We can actually see the trailer here, and that's right. It's Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol. This is really cool stuff. This is from Disney, of course, because they do have the Lucas Arts or Lucasfilms and all of that. So having Lucasfilm Games, .emu, and Limited Run Games working together to bring these games out, as well as, like I said, that physical copy through Limited Run Games later on this summer, is awesome to see. And this will be coming out June 29th on the PlayStation 4, Switch, Windows PC, and Xbox One. And they are also going to have several modern features, as they say, which has a quick save system, achievements. They have these behind the scenes galleries, which looks pretty cool because they even have video interviews with the original developers for the game. And they did talk about 2-player local co-op. Unfortunately, there was no mention of online play for this one. It might just be something you have to play locally, but either way, really cool to see this happen. And I actually remember playing this back in the day. I rented it on the Super Nintendo and had a great time with it. I remember playing, I think with my brother, when we played through like the entire game, like all at once, one weekend. It was really cool to go through that. It's kind of like a top-down adventure action shooting style game, but it is a good time. So definitely look out for that one. It's releasing for $14.99 digitally. We'll see physically what limited run charges for it. I think if it's like $15 digitally, it ends up being like $30 physically, but for all of your collectors out there, at least you know you can kind of hold off until the summer when Limited Run Games announce pre-orders for it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Ubisoft and their recent investors call, because there was a lot of talk about Ubisoft mentioning, hey, free-to-play might be kind of the direction we're going in with these big AAA experiences, and it even seemed to kind of catch investors off guard a bit here. Let's head over to Video Games Chronicles, where they say Ubisoft is shifting away from its traditional strategy of releasing 3 to 4 premium AAA titles each year, but plans to launch high-end free-to-play games for all its biggest franchises. And this was actually a quote from Ubisoft Chief Financial Officer Frederick Duguid saying, "In line with the evolution of our high-quality lineup that is increasingly diverse, we are moving on from our prior comment regarding releasing 3 to 4 premium AAA titles per year. It is indeed no longer a proper indication of our value creation dynamics. For example, our expectation for Just Dance and Riders Republic are consistent with some of the industry's AAA performers. Additionally, we are building high-end free-to-play games to be trending towards AAA ambitions over the long term. This is purely a financial communication evolution and doesn't change the fact that we continue to expect a high cadence of content delivery, including powerful, premium, and free-to-play new releases." Now, I do also want to point out a comment here made on Twitter from a Ubisoft senior analyst, that being Sean Boppin, saying, "Hi, regarding the Ubisoft comment, it's in reference to free-to-play becoming a larger share of the revenue pie, not an indication that there will be less traditional paid games like Assassin's Creed. The content mix is expanding, not changing. A good comparison is the evolution of Call of Duty since Warzone. Ubisoft also did mention Skull and Bones. I'm sure there are some people out there curious as to what's going on with a game that seems to get delayed every year. Well, it's been delayed again. It's apparently coming out next fiscal year. And as for Far Cry, that's actually going to be coming out at least before September. So we'll see about that one there. But looking at exactly their mindset, it makes sense if you look at the numbers, because a lot of these companies are starting to realize, hey, these free-to-play games might actually make us more money if we don't have that $60 or even $70 price barrier in the way, because EA, Ubisoft, Activision, they are seeing that their DLC and their microtransactions are making them more money than that initial premium price. So what have I said for a while? Hey, if FIFA Ultimate Team is making you $800 million a year with that $60 or $70 price wall in the way, how much money would it make if people could just download the game and then just get into it and maybe then start buying these FIFA Ultimate packs? Probably a lot more, because you would then expand the overall user base for that game. Now, Ubisoft says they still have intentions to create big AAA premium experiences, but I do wonder if as they go along, and let's say this free-to-play thing starts working out for them, they bring out these big AAA style free-to-play games like we've seen with, they mentioned The Division Heartland, that's going to be, I assume, one of them, and that starts making a lot of money, so much so that they look over at like Assassin's Creed, which is a $70 product for next gen, and it's making more than that, and it's a game they're able to hold up and continue to add on to as they go along, rather than start back over and develop an entire game that costs a lot of money to do so from start to finish. Why wouldn't they just try to make one game for each series free to play and run it through the entire generation? That is the concern that people have right now, and it's hard to say it isn't concerning, because that could end up being the future of some of these bigger AAA experiences, ones that can be extended out for an entire generation, which could run 7 to 8 years. It's also possible that they could do what we've seen with Activision, have a free-to-play game like Call of Duty Warzone run probably the length of the generation, but then also release several Call of Duty games each year right next to it. And Ubisoft could do the same thing. One thing, though, with Ubisoft is they're very good at making their games last longer than they should. Somehow Assassin's Creed Valhalla is like 60 hours to beat the story. Sure, like it is certainly a time-consuming thing with some of their games, and they'll release them right next to each other, like Assassin's Creed and then Watch Dogs, like 1 month and then the next month. And it's weird to do that when they could probably spread that out throughout the year and have free-to-play experiences running throughout, making them recurring revenue. That appears to be Ubisoft's strategy here, is to continue to build outwards. My concern would be, overall, in the long run, will the free-to-play games eventually start to absorb some of these AAA experiences because they just make too much money? And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Netflix ever release for the Switch? 81% of you said no. Calculator was the big app reveal. Gotta agree. No clue what they close out E3 with now at Nintendo. I mean, I guess they can do Breath of the Wild too. I guess that's Calculator level. And then 19% of you said yes. Obviously, I know Calculator is not a release from Nintendo. It's from Sebek. But still, it did make people more aware all of a sudden that, wait a minute, a Calculator is $10 on the eShop? What else is on there? And then they go through and it's like, wow, there's a lot of junk on here. Yeah, I've been talking about that for years now. And we'll finish up with a comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Yasuke saying, Biomutant is coming in 14 days, and I'm excited for that. You know, there hasn't been a lot of coverage for Biomutant at all. I might look in trying to get that game maybe early if I can and go through it and doing a video around it, because the more I've seen that game, the more interesting and fun it looks. So I feel like it's going to fly under the radar. It's out, what, like the 25th? And that's like, a couple weeks out from E3, and we just had Resident Evil, and then we have some other games coming up here as well. So I don't think there's gonna be a lot of marketing for it, and if it ends up being a big time sleeper hit, I'd like more people to at least know that it's a good game and check it out. So I'll look into that a bit more and see if I can get like an early copy of it so we can go over it here, or maybe even on the podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's Ubisoft's potential strategy going forward with these free-to-play titles. Do you like the idea of these games that already have microtransactions in them anyway to just drop the premium price, or are you concerned that that could become the primary focus for Ubisoft and other companies going forward? Let me know about that one. Then also, what about Gabe Newell's comments about some Valve games heading to consoles at some point this year? And of course, what about Calculator on the Nintendo Switch? What were your thoughts when you saw that that was going to be heading to the system for $10? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.